people, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm very excited to do because I'm going to be talking about all green palettes in my collection. Green eyeshadow palettes is something that I personally enjoy using throughout the entire year. However, we're also in the season of fall and going into holidays, going into Thanksgiving and Christmas times, and one of my favorite makeups to do is create a really beautiful green makeup look to watch my Grinch movie at Christmas time. So I thought I would go through my entire collection and pull out all the palettes that are inspiring me in the green theme. Some of these palettes are more monochromatic in a green theme, and some of them have a small portion of beautiful green color combinations. So I have a little bit over 20 palettes to share with you today, something that I have in my collection, formulas that I enjoy and love and get inspired reaching for and creating those beautiful looks. So among these palettes, you will see anything from the drugstore, quite affordable palettes, also going into more of a luxury brand. I have indie palettes, mainstream palettes, a good mix of everything. So if you're new here, before we get started, I would love to welcome new visitors and viewers to my channel. Hello, my name is Eve and I love all things beauty. Here on my channel, I share about beauty and lifestyle. If that sounds interesting to you, I hope you enjoy this video. Subscribe to my channel. And now without further ado, let's dive into my green and greenish eyeshadow palettes. Not in any particular order, let's get started. I just want to do a small disclaimer that a majority of my makeup I do purchase myself. I have a very few palettes that were sent to me in the PR, so I will put that information here on the screen for you for your information. And if I have any discount codes for any of these brands, they're always linked for you in the description box and in the header of my Instagram. And also I will pop them here on the screen for you for your convenience. So not in any particular order, let's begin. This is a Heather Austin and Adept Cosmetics palette. This is my first Adept Cosmetics palette that I just picked up recently. This is a stunning palette that only technically have like 4 mattes, but beautiful duochromes. Majority of these shimmers are duochromes. So since we're talking about the green, beautiful green shades today, this corner specifically is spectacular. This shade specifically is very, very unique. The reason why I even included this palette here is because this shade is very, very interesting. You of course will get a beautiful base for your look, for your green look, but look at this multi-chrome. If this doesn't give you like full Beetlejuice glam, I don't know what does. Look how stunning this is. This next palette right here is a Trick or Treat from Odenseye and collaboration with Angelica Nyqvist. This is a new palette that was just launched for Halloween this year. This is a beautiful color story, very punchy. The perimeter of this palette is definitely more neutral, but you definitely get this beautiful bright green corner, and these shimmers are so gorgeous. This green, this bright green is truly one of the most beautiful greens and very special greens in my collection. Super smooth. You can also layer it as a topper on, for example, like one of these like burgundies and reds. When I tell you this is such a special makeup look, if you have this palette, I definitely inspire you and encourage you to try that type of look. You can definitely pack it like that to full opacity, but you can also share it out and use it as a topper. It just gives you like the most spectacular effect. So definitely this palette is one of the ones that I would reach for and think about when I would need to create beautiful green looks. And like I mentioned earlier, I do like to do a green look to watch a Grinch movie. We do this every year, and I always reach for some type of a green palette in my collection to create a green look. And I think this is the palette that I'm going to be using this year because seriously, this green is perfection. This next palette is from NOMAD Okavango Safari palette. This was launched this year. Beautiful packaging. So this palette definitely serves you more greens. I really love the combination of greens and neutrals, but these two shimmers are just super beautiful as well. They're a little bit more subtle, but as you can see, they're smooth, they're reflective, and I really love the green looks that come out of this palette. Stone and Rock palette from Odenseye. What a gorgeous packaging, first of all. This is their permanent line of palettes that was launched this year as well. Definitely more curated. Like if you cover this section of the palette, is definitely very green, but again, muted. I really, really love this muted jewel tones. Let's say this green shade is just so beautiful and smooth and creamy on touch. Look at this reflect, so stunning. I do have a dedicated video for this palette where I created look tutorials if you wanted to get a little bit more up close inspiration. Even though these greens are still monochromatic, you can definitely differentiate your looks a little bit. And I do like the fact that there is a neutral corner if you like to neutralize your looks a little bit, but this palette also can give you a lot of drama because there's a black and white, or black and white rather. So yeah, definitely a special palette. And also wanted to say that the formula in this permanent collection or launch is top notch. Such a gorgeous high-end formula with mattes and shimmers. Spectacular. I definitely recommend this palette. This is a stunning palette. If you needed something that's green but not too primary, then this would be a good choice. Here I have a Gemini palette from NOMAD Cosmetics. This is my only NOMAD Cosmetics beauty product in my collection. This packaging is stunning. This palette has texture. When you touch the roses, they are protruding, so beautiful. Palette is also weighted, so it does feel very nice and luxury, beautiful mirror, and this is a beautiful color story. This color story is perfection. NOMAD Cosmetics formula, to my opinion, is pigmented to the point that it can be overwhelming a little bit. It's very pigmented, and I don't think it is for the beginner. This color story to me is perfection. I do love my warm neutrals and also greens. All the shades are absolutely stunning and go well together. Only 2 shimmers in this palette. They're not my favorite. They're a little bit too chunky. However, the mattes are what's good about this palette, and yeah, they're very beautiful. Is Beauté Ambiance palette next. I really like this packaging. It's really pretty. This was a launch from last year's. I really love this color story generally, but especially these greens. And I really love this shade. It's very pretty. I really love this like brownish mustard. Look how beautiful. This one also, and I'm going to show you these shimmers. They're just so smooth, so reflective. You definitely get one that's a little bit more muted, and this one is a little bit more brighter green. I really like this. The formula of Ace Beauté is so stunning. I do have a dedicated video for this palette as well if you wanted to see a little bit more details. This is the palette that I like to reach in the fall specifically. It gives you a beautiful, a rich pigment, easy to work with formulation, and the shimmers are out of this world. I know we're talking about greens, but I have to show you the swatch for this shade right here. This is my favorite shade in this palette. This is this fiery orange. Like, look at this. Are you serious? How stunning. My next palette in my collection is Ghost Town USA from NOMAD Cosmetics, also new palette for this year that was launched right around Halloween. The packaging. I could just sit here and play with this. So stunning. I absolutely love this color story. This is probably one of the most favorite palettes that were launched that I got to have this year. The quality of mattes and shimmers is just so stunning. This is a colorful palette for neutrals lover for sure. And I really love how everything is muted. However, you get really nice and bright shimmers. Some of the shimmers are really beautiful and bright and punchy if you wanted to like balance your looks a little bit. But let's take a look at this area right here. These shades are very unique to my collection. I do not really have anything like this, but I really love how muted the mattes are. So these 2 shimmers are just so pretty. This one is a little bit more green. Look how beautiful and smooth this is. And this one is a little bit more gold. It's still green, but it does have a little bit more like neutrality in it. But I really love the quality of this palette. Like I said, the mattes are exceptional and the shimmers are super beautiful and smooth and reflective. I do have a dedicated video on this palette if you were looking for more inspiration. This is the palette that definitely is a little bit more wearable, let's say. I am to the core neutrals lover. Neutrals is where my comfort zone is, but I do love a little bit of color, and this is a palette that definitely, you know, gives you a little bit of versatility with color, but it's muted, it's comfortably colorful. So I really like this palette. Another new palette to this year that I added to my collection from Blend Bunny, and Sugar and Grunge palette. This is a little bit larger palette, definitely a little bit more colorful, but I specifically wanted to bring your attention to the greens. And I really love that this palette is organized in a way that it sets you for success with your blending game. This is a really foolproof setup. You can definitely do more monochromatic looks with this palette or mix and match the shades, and everything just works so beautifully. I really love the shimmers. These shimmers are just super stunning. Look how beautiful these shimmers are. These are the single swatches. Impressive. This is very impressive, but also the mattes in this palette are just, look at this opacity, and this is how they come off on eyes. Stunning. I really love that you get a lot of versatility with this palette. You can do very smoky eyes, you can do very light pastel looks. The shimmers are also stunning, and definitely these greens are very unique to my collection. Love it. So here I have Natasha Denona mini gold palette. Beautiful. It's very unique. I really love this muted grungy moment right here. So Natasha Denona's formula is one of my favorite eyeshadow palette formulas in my collection, and I think that trying one of her minis, which she has a good variety of color stories to choose from, I think this is a really good way of dipping your toes into her formula and see if you even enjoy it, which I don't think you wouldn't. A very high quality feel and performance from these eyeshadows. So the shimmers are very beautiful and reflective, very smooth. Look how gorgeous these are. so stunning, so reflective, so pigmented. And I even like this darker shade here. It's also metallic, and I personally do not mind having this darker shade as a shimmer, because once you finish off on your look, it definitely gives you very nice glamorous finish. Another formula in my collection that is one of my favorites that I very much enjoy is from Sigma Beauty. This is their 9-pan palette Ivy, and this is more of a neutral eyeshadow palette. However, it does have this beautiful, one of my favorite greens to wear every day with my neutral shades. I really love this palette. This specific palette has been loved by me. When I mean I use it very often. You can see some significant dips in some of the shades, but this is the type of green that I love on everyday basis. I consider this neutral at this point. It's so stunning. Look how pretty this is. It does have a beautiful reflect, but it's also kind of modest in a way. You know, it pairs very well with neutrals, and this palette is just gorgeous. I always say that if you are a little bit maybe uncomfortable with full colorful looks, try to pair your colors with neutrals and then ease yourself into the color that way. This is how I started my journey with color. I am down to the bone neutrals lover. At one point, this was all I had in my collection. I would have like 1 or 2 neutral palettes, and this is all I used. Then I started getting into more colorful looks. It's also one of those shades that is close to nature, let's say. I think this is just one of those comfortable ways easing yourself into color. So just my friendly advice. But I really love the formula, and I absolutely love this green shade here. Now, the palette that took over the world, Natasha Denona Yucca palette. Oh my God, gorgeous. This palette is stunning. I know it's expensive, but I safely can say that it's worth every single penny. If you love the warm neutrals, if you like this type of color story, you're gonna love this palette. Absolutely love this palette. I do have a discount code with Natasha Denona, 15% on their website if you were looking to purchase anything. I think this is the palette that is pure perfection. That I do have a lot of content related to this palette. I do have the entire playlist here on my channel dedicated to Natasha Denona palettes. I do have a pretty large collection of Natasha Denona palettes, both minis and mid-size, and some of the large ones. So if you're interested to binge watch Natasha Denona content, then you're more than welcome. It's here for you. Some of the most beautiful shimmers, like, oh my God, gorgeous. It's definitely colorful, but it's also somewhat kind of neutral, if you will. Like, it's not too green, but it is green, you know? So it definitely has a little bit of neutrality in the shades. This is just such a special addition to my collection. So these palettes I kind of wanted to do a shout out to because they are the same color story. Retro Glam from Natasha Denona, and then Sakura from Alter Ego. These are the same color stories, but of course we have different formulations, even though Natasha Denona formula is Natasha Denona formula, and this palette from Alter Ego is actually very nice formula too. So if you are on a budget, if this color story appeals to you, definitely try out Sakura first. If you are not comfortable with primary, really bright greens, you feel overwhelmed, it's not your cup of tea, you want a little bit more subtle, this could be a good option to start with or try out. Something that's a little bit more pastel, maybe some of these beautiful, more neutral shimmers. Look how beautiful these are. I personally am very fair, and I find these specific tones like sagey greens very flattering. So here I have another small stash of palettes that are a little bit more affordable. Fade into Hue from ColourPop. This is a pretty much of a rainbow palette. So this specific row is definitely more of your primary greens, but this shade my boyfriend actually used recently for Halloween, and I used this row for my Beetlejuice makeup. But I just wanted to show you some of these shades, and this one is like super fun shade as well. Look at these. These are super fun. They're definitely bright and punchy. These are not your shy shades. This is definitely my companion palette in my collection, but I sometimes do need to reach for the shades, and I think this palette gives you a really nice quality to work with. This is a Nomad from Juvia's Place. I really like this color story. It's definitely a little bit more muted, beautiful, like some of the warmness going on here. This is generally my cup of tea right here. So before I had the Yucca palette, I would reach to this palette for certain looks, but now I definitely would have a preference for Yucca palette. If I would have to recommend you, that palette definitely has a lot of value if you like this color story, but this is a really nice budget option. This is definitely not your green palette, but it's more of like a very muted, like mossy, mustardy green. Once I apply this shade on my eye and mix it up with this and add this one, this is like very dark swampy green. You know, it does have a green tint. Once you apply everything, it definitely does give you a green hint, but it is not that super obvious green palette, but it's very muted. So if you're not into those super punchy green primary colors, this could be something that is an option. Another palette that I just wanted to mention is from Flower Beauty Jungle Lights. This is 6-pan full shimmer palette, and this has been around for a very long time. This only has one green, but oh my god, this is a green. Look at this. Also a little bit muted green color. But again, if you already have a collection of possibly even some neutrals and you just want something a little bit different here and there that you may use for occasion, I think this is a great palette to add. Flower Beauty has a few of these palettes now. This one is definitely by far the most diverse and the most different out of 4 of them. This has your jewel tones, and this green is definitely a gorgeous, gorgeous shade. This is another palette that is going to be a forever favorite. I feel like Harvest from Profusion. This palette is also $10. $10, you guys. This is absolutely crazy. Some warm tones and a lot of different greens. I have some inspirational look tutorials on my Instagram with this palette. I just think this palette is so good, and it also offers a lot. You can create a bunch of different looks, especially if you like the warm neutrals and greens. This formula right here is a cream formula. Like, seriously, like, would you look at this? My fingers are so stained at this point. Look at this shimmer, look at this shimmer. Like, look at these shades. They are high-end. I do not know how this palette is $10. What is going on? This is definitely a formula that is a little bit more buildable, let's say, but I really, really like this palette, and I always recommend it if it comes to greens. This palette has been loved by me a lot. One of the favorite palettes, Hocus Pocus. Unfortunately, it's no longer available. I really hope they will bring it back. This is just such a gorgeous palette. I recently used this on Halloween to create my Beetlejuice looks, but this row right here is just something else. It's gorgeous. Look at these shades. They're so punchy. I love this palette. Great quality. It serves you greens beautifully and also gives you more shades to choose from. You can definitely still get your hands on this palette, but not from the original brand's website. I really hope they will bring it back because the formula and just the color story is just so great. This palette, Avocado Toast from BH Cosmetics. Beautiful, a little bit more muted, definitely green and definitely some neutrality here, but it's not super vibrant. This palette has been around for a very long time and it's still available on BH Cosmetics website. I recently just saw it there. Beautiful formula and easy to work with. Another one that is very much favorite from Star Wars Mandalorian, the Child palette. First of all, the packaging is the cutest. This is such a gorgeous color story of greens, a little bit muted. I really also appreciate this beautiful mint shade if you enjoy pastels. Maybe even pair this with a neutral and add some of these icy shades for like a frosty Christmas. I think that would be also a very beautiful look. That would be very much a fit for holidays. It's just something different, something not traditional. I just think this palette is versatile. I will never let it go. It's so perfect. And then this is a super fun palette. I actually used this last time to watch my Grunge movie last year, and Absinthe from BH Cosmetics. This is such a gorgeous palette. You do get 3 mattes. The shimmers are just stunning. This is the shade that I used primarily last year for my look, but this one is also so pretty. I just love this palette so much. There's only 9 pans. Obviously, it's super green, but oh my god, this is gorgeous. This palette is also still available on BH Cosmetics website, and I highly, highly recommend if you are looking for amazing greens. So the next palette is the Rainforest Haze from Catrice. This is such a stunning palette. It's definitely more shimmer heavy, but has some beautiful greens and golds. This palette did not get a lot of hype at all when it was launched, and I really do not know why. It just had a very brief moment of spotlight, and then nobody ever talked about this. I do not know what Catrice did here, but this is not the formula of the Catrice eyeshadow palettes that we know of. Look how beautiful, fully foiled and reflective and smooth these are. This is a very affordable palette. I think it was originally about $12 and it recently went on sale. I just recently saw it on sale. I have this single from Odenseye. This is in the shade Gabrielle, and this is a beautiful, beautiful shimmer. These were launched just recently this year. Well, I acquired it this year, but look at this beautiful green shade. If you like singles, I think this line of singles is absolutely stunning, and you can get this little container to go with it. So I think this is a beautiful green. Wild Greens from Urban Decay. This palette was not really welcomed here in beauty community when this was launched, you know, partially because of the brand, partially because of the color story, partially because of this packaging. I am myself not a huge fan of this packaging. I honestly don't even think this palette is available anymore, but I did want to include this here because I really like this palette. I've used this palette quite a bit. I really like this palette. I really think that this is a very easy formula to work with, but I really love these greens. Like this green, this pastel green. These are beautiful. They're a little bit more muted, but I very much enjoy the mattes and the shimmers here. My fingers are super stained, but these are pretty much all my eyeshadow palettes that have greens primarily in them, or a good portion of the greens in the color story. I definitely have a few more eyeshadow palettes in my collection that would have maybe like 1 green or 2 greens, but I did not really want to talk about them because I wanted to give you a little bit more substantial amount of greens in each palette, just in case you were looking for a green palette or you just wanted to see what's in my collection and see some beautiful swatches of greens, get a little bit more inspiration for the holidays, for the season. So if you have a favorite green eyeshadow palette or a single comment below this video, share with me and everybody else who will be reading the comment section. If you also have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I would love to chat with you there. If you enjoyed this video and enjoyed my company today, give this video a like, and I invite you to subscribe to my channel if you're not yet a subscriber. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today, and I will see you in my next videos. Bye!